Hello and welcome to Ageless Flexibility 2. In our first video, we really talked about lengthening the calf and the hip, primarily in our sagittal plane. But now let's talk about the hips in the frontal plane and in our transverse plane. So if you think about, again, in that first little video, when you step back and you externally rotate it, part of, again, if the hip flexor is tight, and or let's say you've been taking a lot of bar classes or whatever, and you're forced into being in external rotation for a long time. So if I'm in external rotation for a long time, I'm actually shortening the gluteus medius and minimus. I'm also taking my SI joint up against my L4-5. So this is why so many dancers and people that take bar classes have back problems and back pain. So what we want to focus on now is how do we lengthen basically the lateral part of our body, okay? So again, if you were to just kind of move those hips from right to left, and you might notice that one side is probably a little bit tighter than the other. This is really typical. So this is not bad to move side to side, but I really want to invite along my shoulder and my arm. So the minute I take the left arm and I say reach, and now I start to press laterally into my left hip, I'm getting much more bang for my buck than if I'm just doing this. Because you're starting to say, all right, that whole superficial lateral line of fascia, I'm inviting to move with me. Let's do the other side. So again, you're softening into your knees and you're simply reaching over your body. Now, I know we've done stretches like this forever, but usually what we're doing is a stretch like this, a toe tap out side to side. But we're really not saying, come on, hips, you need to be part of this party. And when I start to move my hips laterally, rather than tucking, squeezing my glutes that's told in every other program, then I start to lose mobility in my hips. That's huge for somebody like a golfer. So if somebody is really locked up in their glutes, they're going to have back problems, especially if they are a golf and or pickleball enthusiast. So again, we want to think about how can I really start to move these hips right to left. So if we want to get a greater stretch, greater flexibility in my left hip, let's say I'm going to toe tap out in my right foot, then I'm going to cross behind. And the minute I cross behind, I've started to lengthen this gluteus and then tap out to the side. So as a warm up, my knee is in a great place right now. And as I start to use my right hand as a driver and I reach out and come back, I'm really lengthening into that side body. Now, instead of reaching forward, I'm going to reach below the knee. And now I'm going to invite a little flexibility to happen in my thoracic spine. So now this becomes pretty dynamic. And I want you to think about that movement. How does it relate to this in a swing of golf? 100%. So again, and once you start, let's reach up. Once you start thinking about where you're reaching, what am I affecting? What am I trying to get here? What am I trying to open up? Again, human movement is very authentic, except we really gunk it up a lot. So after you've done that, now go back to these. And just by doing a cross back lunge, reaching forward or reaching in front of you, notice how your hips automatically feel. Now, obviously somebody coming off of hip surgery, hip replacement, we're going to limit that range of motion. It might be just a toe tap, once you've been medically released to do that. So again, when we start combining and looking, okay, as I reach here in my frontal plane, my hip is driving my shoulder. So let's say I've got a shoulder injury and this is as far as I can go. I'm feeding into my shoulder right now through my hip, right? And so again, I'm starting to get a little better mobility in my shoulder because I'm not reaching my arm up. I'm really creating this motion here, which is really delicious for both hips and shoulders. And if we did more of this prior to going into, playing pickleball or playing golf or whatever, all of a sudden things would improve. So the focus of this video today is just getting those hips to move laterally. Now, this is one of my favorites, thank you, Gary Gray, is standing next to a wall and turning your feet away from the wall. And so I've internally rotated my hip that's next to the wall, and I've externally rotated my hip that's away from the wall. So now I'm just going to try to squat down, and I'm going to touch that wall and come back. So this is one of the Gray Institute's kind of go-to moves called wall bangers. And I really love this one because, again, I can see right away whether one of my clients, like myself, is more locked up on one side versus the other. So I'm definitely tighter on my right side than my left. But again, if we look at these movements, and a visual would look like this. So you're pushing out into the gluteus and you're lengthening it. So again, if I'm working a lot, in tightening my glutes and restricting the motion in my hips, then if I don't have mobility in my hips, I'm going to get it somewhere. And it's probably going to be more in my thoracic spine. And again, if I'm one of those people that likes to do a lot of indoor cycling, etc., and I'm in a flex position, all of it has this reaction. So I want you to think about, again, the body as a whole. An ageless body is a body as a whole, not a part. And by increasing our flexibility, we increase longevity in our body. Again, this is Leslie Bender, and thank you for watching today in Ageless Flexibility Part 2. There's more coming your way.